Hello, welcome to another episode of the show. What show? My show. Spider Does Things. And tonight I'm doing the show. I don't know how long this one's going to be. I didn't have a lot to talk about, but I had some very specific things that have been going on to talk about. And there might be more in a few days, depending on what all happens in the news. And I guess the big one that's breaking, although this isn't the biggest one, this isn't the most important one, but it's one I know a lot of people are going to be talking about. TikTok. Let's talk about TikTok. But you know what? Before we get into that, let's just get some casual stuff out of the way. How are you folks doing? How are you doing? I'm all right. I'm doing okay. Super sober at the moment. Not a drop of stuff available at the moment. So I've got my cup of water here, and nothing wrong with that, really. It's probably healthier, but whichever. It is quite cold here, which is something I'm going to get into a little bit later, so I'm not going to dwell on that too much right now. But hopefully everybody out there is doing well. I know there's a lot of things going on in the nation, and that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about what's going on the West Coast, what's going to be going through the Midwest up into the Northeast, and various other things. A little bit of lighthearted stuff and some heavy stuff. So that's what we're going to be getting into. So back to, I was ready to charge right into it, because it came up breaking news on my phone, so I guess it's like, oh yeah, here it is. And I knew this was coming. I've been following this story for a few days. And the extended long story for quite a while. TikTok. On Sunday, TikTok in the United States is set to be disabled. Meaning you won't be able to connect to it, you won't be able to watch anything on it, you won't be able to do anything with it if you live in the United States. Which is a pretty neat trick to be able to do that. Any one of your apps on your phones, that could happen. Which, on the one hand, is actually pretty concerning. Right? Because if any one of your... And this is the thing that people aren't really talking about as much. A lot of people are talking about TikTok as like free speech issue and this and that, but they're not talking about the fact that despite telecommunications being a business run by multiple companies like, AT&T, Verizon, all these other people, despite all that, the federal government can just step in at any point and say, this app is a problem. We don't want it here on the phones in our country. And other countries can do stuff like that too, but they mostly just block it because they own the internet. Like, in the Middle Eastern countries, their governments own all of their internet and everything like that, all of that infrastructure. There aren't businesses that run that, so you don't have any choice on it. And so that they can selectively turn on and off access to different things. Like if they don't want you to be on Facebook to cover a protest or something, but for example, they can turn off internet access or Facebook access or something like that. But it's not shutting down. It's not a firm, stoppage of the app. Whereas here in the United States, we've just found out that they can. They can just completely block off all access if they wish, which is concerning. Now, on to TikTok. TikTok is problematic. And I'm going to get a lot of people out there who are going to be like, you're too old, you don't understand TikTok, it's so useful, it's so great, you're just a grumpy old guy. And I am a grumpy old guy. But TikTok is, despite whatever they've said about it, the parent company that owns the whole thing, that runs it, despite what they've said about certain servers are sectioned off and things, the app is beholden to the Chinese government, because everything in China is beholden to the Chinese government. And they do use it as a monitoring tool, not to individually like spy on your camera and things like that. I mean, it's not cyberpunk kind of stuff. They're not watching you in your house, whether you've got the app loaded up or not. It's not that kind of thing. They're not taking control of your phone. It's not that deep. But what they're doing is they're watching what you do with it via data and watching societal trends like the dances and the Tide Pods, and you remember that from a couple years ago, the Tide Pods, ugh, and all that other kind of stuff. And they're watching how people use them and what they're choosing to watch on them, because that's what they do. That's what most countries do, to be honest. Most countries try to influence their citizens through things that their citizens enjoy. So they watch what you're into. They watch the music you like, the movies you like, by the trends, by the numbers. And they try to nudge you through those mediums into different political outlooks or different social outlooks or different things. And so they learn how you operate. And that's not something that's restricted to China, but TikTok in particular has been more blatant about it, which is how they got caught. And they got caught by the FBI. Now, I've got some back and forth about the FBI these days, because the FBI for the last several years, over the last, I don't know, maybe let's say close to 10 years, they've dropped the ball, let's say, on a lot of things, and they've shown that they're not immune to being given suggestion by an administration that might be in charge at any given point. And I'm not pointing the fingers in any specific administration, because the last last four, I guess, but this one upcoming is a resurgence of one of those, so I kind of just count that as one of the three, but I guess you could say four. The last four, at least, have used the FBI in ways that are not particularly helpful in a lot of situations, and a lot of times against each other, which is one of the funny parts. They've used it against each other in all these investigations and things for different people for different reasons. So you're well within your skepticism to be like, well, you can't really trust the FBI to say anything bad about it, and if they found out it's a Chinese tool of surveillance, well, how do we know they're telling the truth? Well, that's a good point. But a lot of other stuff has come out, and I don't have fast and hard links for it. You're going to have to, look up news sources, because it's been extensively covered in various news outlets, both mainstream and otherwise. And I'm not telling you to go look at Uncle Leroy 657 or Cabin Warrior Extreme on Twitter and get your news from people that you don't know. I don't get my news like that. I look at multiple sources and dig into a lot of different things to try to scope out a story about stuff. But I would encourage you to look into everything that's come out about it, because TikTok is bad, to be honest. I know a lot of people love it. A lot of people use it for stuff. And some people do legitimately use it for helpful things. I guess there's educators that use it for education stuff and whatnot, but to be honest, it's a detriment. A lot of social media things are a detriment. There's a lot of good points about them, and there's a lot of bad points about them. But I, for one, will not really be holding a candle for TikTok when it goes away. I wouldn't be doing that for Twitter /X or whatever, or any of those either. Facebook is pretty much a non-entity at this point, to be honest. A lot of people still feel it's really important, but from following the trends and things, it's not like it was. It's a source of ad revenue, and that's basically it. To be perfectly clear from my point of view. But yeah, TikTok is set on Sunday to go away. Will you miss TikTok? Do you use it? Are you really big into it? Are you really upset about it? Or are you on the other side of the fence? Are you kind of in the camp where I'm at, where it's like, hey, you know what? I didn't need it when it was here, and I'm not going to miss it when it's gone. How do you feel about it? I'd like to hear your thoughts about it. So if you want to drop a comment on wherever you listen to it on, if it allows comments, if it's Spotify or on YouTube when I get it there, by all means. Or you can send me an email at uncannyspiritsclub@gmail.com. Continuing to talk about social media for a few minutes before I get into my other topics, because I guess it's a natural segue from one app to the other. YouTube. Let's talk about YouTube for a minute. Specifically, let's talk about YouTubers, the people who consider themselves to be, I don't know if there's another title for it. YouTube royalty, maybe, or the OG YouTube folks, or the people who are with the biggest platforms. I don't know. I use YouTube for my own personal stuff, like for these radio shows and for my music and for my gaming videos, and it's pretty much the central hub for most of the things that I do these days. So I do use it. I used to hate it, and I still kind of do. There's so much garbage still on YouTube. But it has moved kind of far beyond what it was when it first came out, and it was really kind of a cesspit. It kind of was. There was more of it was garbage than was otherwise. Short attention span stuff, the worst of the worst kind of entertainment. It was on YouTube. And there's a lot more than that now. You got a lot of tutorials on how to do things, like how to fix cars, how to cook food. There's history. There's a lot of things. News networks use it for good or for bad. One of the news stories that I follow pretty closely on YouTube is the developments in Dalton and Thornton Township with that super mayor, Tiffany Henyard. She's awful, by the way. She's absolutely awful. I can't wait till that all finishes up and they boot her and everybody that she puts in position of power to the curb. She's terrible. Like, she's running the places into the ground, and it was so blatant that people like really caught on quick, and she got busted for it, and now she's mad and whatever. But I'm following that story, so I'm following various news outlets, and occasionally the random person who has an opinion on it, if they're presenting a smart opinion. When I say a smart opinion, I mean an opinion that goes off the news stories and that is informed about the thing and kind of lets you think things through a little bit. It's not like necessarily one-sided. So I use YouTube more than I used to. And I do watch some of the dumb stuff on it now, because some of the stuff is funny. Like the AI presidential stuff, when they'll have Obama and Biden and Trump all playing video games together. Some of that stuff is really fun. Some of it's dumb. Like, it gets into Call of Duty style trash talk, and then it's just annoying. Because I don't want to hear that from regular people, so I don't really want to hear it from AI people either. It's just annoying. But other stuff is kind of fun and entertaining. And, so YouTube is kind of my central hub, but I don't consider myself a YouTuber. I'm a person who leverages YouTube for what I'm doing. And the reason I say that is because I have a really DIY approach. I have my little theme song at the beginning of stuff. And that's pretty much it. When I'm doing the shorts, like doing my robots on a turntable thing, I'll pipe in some music for it just to make it a little bit more interesting, but I don't have flashy effects, I don't have jump cuts, I don't have edits, I don't generally do a lot of that because I don't think it's necessary. I don't touch up my face. I don't have a special studio in my house. I'm sitting on the couch right now. This is how I do things. I sit on the couch. Always have with radio. There was a while when I was up in my attic studio, but the temperature up there fluctuates too much, and the equipment that I had, it wasn't conducive to what I was trying to do up there. So I've been on the couch pretty much forever in my living room, and that works. It's fine. It's not a big deal. I don't think everything needs to be a big production. When it becomes a big production and it gets all flashy and it gets, I find it to be kind of problematic. I think people lose themselves in their own hype, so to speak. And I'm going to probably name a few names, not in a way to name and shame anybody. I'm not trying to put anybody on blast, and I'm not trying to insult anybody, and I'm not trying to get clout, because I don't know these people personally. I don't know any of the people that I'm going to name personally, and their viewership is far above mine. I can admit that. I'm not gonna blow smoke about it and say that, well, these people are clearly not as good as me because of the things they do, and that's not the comparison I'm making. I'm just gonna throw some stuff out as an example of what I think is the problem with YouTubers today. I'm tuned in to the various discussions about the state of gaming right now, as you know I would be, because I'm a big console gamer, used to be a PC gamer, and I like to stay tuned in to the conversation on where things are going. So I follow along with. There's a big divide between people who consider themselves gaming journalists, like people on the teams for Kotaku, who are falling apart, IGN, who are also falling apart, laid off a good portion of their company, PC Gamer, Joystick, etc. I don't know if you recognize any of these names I've thrown out, because most of the time gaming journalism sites are not nearly as big as regular news sites, because it's always been kind of a niche area, right? So, but there's a divide between them and the independent YouTuber folks who identify as YouTubers, as a title, as a mark of status, I suppose, about how stories are presented, about how the news gets around. So I follow some of that. One of the people I follow, I'm not subscribed right now because I don't agree with some of the things that he says, and that's not a knock on him. Again, I'm not going to insult anybody, and I'm not calling people out in a way where I'm like, hey, I think you should do better, I think you suck. I'm not saying that. I'm some small-time guy, okay? Just pointing out examples of what I think. And one of the people I follow is Hypnotic, and one of the kind of annoying things I find about him, and again, I'm not trying to personally insult him. So, Hypnotic, if this gets back to you, I'm not trying to be a douche to you, man. I'm not trying to, start a fight or anything like that. I respect what you're doing. I do. There's some things that are irritating. And one of the things that are irritating is the need you have to protect your identity. And I get it. I do understand why. I mean, I'm not shy about having my face on the camera and people knowing who I am. Are people going to try and cancel me? Whatever. I don't care. No big deal. The difference is probably that my audience is so much smaller, so I'm not using it currently to fund my lifestyle. Whereas yourself, with your followers and your subscribers, you rely on that ad revenue, and it probably is a bigger deal for you if something were to happen and somebody were to mess with you. I get it. I just find it kind of annoying, the way that folks obscure their identity. And before Hypnotic, he had a graphic that was a guy in a hoodie with like a little red eyes and things, like a ninja looking thing, kind of, I guess. I don't know. I don't know the aesthetic. I've never been privy to the conversations around why he picked the image he picked for himself. And it's his own business. I don't care. Right? But he recently went to this animated avatar ninja thing. And I hate it. I don't like it. It looks comedic to me. So if you're listening, Hypnotic, it just looks... It takes away from what you're saying. Honestly. It's comedic. It looks like a joke. I mean, if you're proud of it, that's cool. Again, I'm just one guy. It's just my one opinion. You 100%, I'm sure you disagree with what I'm saying. And I'm not saying that it's stupid or that you're stupid or that anything like that. You know, I'm not doing that. I don't like it. I don't like it. And of course, you're completely free to ignore me about it. And some of his takes on things I don't follow. Like he comes down hard on Microsoft a lot. I know that Microsoft is going through some things with the layoffs and stuff, but Sony's in a bad place too. A lot of the game industry is in a bad place. And I don't think things are as dire for Microsoft as he makes it out to be. And that's not me just being a loyalist because I use the Xbox, the Microsoft products. I'm just saying, because when it came down to it, I didn't pick Xbox over PlayStation just because of brand loyalty. I picked it up because I liked the controllers better, I liked the majority of the games better, I liked the way the console worked a little bit better, and that was it. I don't have anything against Sony. I have a Switch in my house also. I don't use it very much because it's not really for me, it's for the other people in my house. And I have an old PlayStation 3. I play games on it sometimes. You know, it's not a big deal. But he comes down hard on Microsoft stuff, and I disagree with that a lot. But he's gotten a lot more of a fan base relatively recently over the last couple of years because of the whole shift in gaming attitudes. So he's become a big player from somebody from the outside looking in. And I think that's caused him to do some more gimmicks, like the animated avatar and things like that. And I don't like gimmicky stuff. I think once you buy into a gimmick as an online presenter, I think you've kind of... I don't want to say sold yourself out necessarily. I don't want to say that. Because I don't want to make it like, oh, you're just a sellout now, man. You're just working for the man. Blah. That's old school talk. I just don't think you're as authentic as you could have been anymore. Because you got the gimmicks. You got an image to uphold now. You have to adhere to that. Because you rely on this audience now. And maybe that's going to happen to me. Maybe if I get to that level, if I get anywhere near the subscription levels that you do, maybe I'll have to rely on a gimmick too. I hope not. I'm too much of an old punk rock kind of guy, and then I think I'd feel too dirty with myself to want to keep that up, and I'd probably just shoot myself in the foot on purpose just to not do that. Not like literally, but you know what I mean. Metaphorically. So Hypnotic and who else? There's a lot of talk around Smash JT. I don't follow him much. I follow him sometimes. And the thing that's going back and forth between him and Alyssa Mercante, formerly of Kotaku, is kind of funny. I don't know what direction she thinks she's going with anything that she's doing. She says stuff for clout. She says stuff for shock value. She's 100% in the game for clout. She was a former Kotaku editor. She did other kinds of work beforehand. I'm not going to, again, put her on blast with different things. It's not my business. I don't care. Whatever she does with her money and however she makes her money, that's her choice. I don't care. It's not up to me. It's not up to me to judge. But she seems to latch on to stuff and latch on to people, and this lawsuit is bound to fail. I don't know what she thinks she's going to get out of it. And Smash JT he's a little hyperactive about it. He's a little over the top about it. Like, everything's a huge deal in his life. It's like, oh no, this thing, I gotta get so excited, and I gotta, oh my gosh. And I don't know. It's not that deep for me. And maybe that's why I don't have as many followers as he does. I can see that, probably, Again, I'm not insulting him. I'm just talking about what I see from my couch. Which is fine. We're all free to say how we feel about these kind of things. I'm not going to go off on a free speech rant because I know it's government stuff, and because it's to prevent you from being cracked down by the government. It's not necessarily whatever, but I think people should be able to say, as long as you're not going around bullying people for no particular reason. Like, if I came on here and said, Hypnotic's a piece of garbage and Smash JT is a child, blah, blah. If I said stuff like that, then legitimately I should expect them to be upset with me. Right? That's fair. That's 100% fair, because that's me being belligerent. That's me being a jerk for no particular reason. Maybe it'd be me trying to clout chase by name dropping and insulting people, starting beef. Like a rap beef, I'd be starting a beef with people just to get famous, But I'm not going to do that. That's not what I'm after. I don't like what some of the people do, but I do like some of the other things that they do. So the whole YouTuber ecosystem is problematic for that, because once you get to a level, and again, maybe it is inevitable, maybe once you get to a level of notoriety where you have a certain amount of subscribers and people who follow what you do and comment on your stuff and throw your name around, maybe you have to do that gimmicky stuff. Maybe you have to do something to stand out in the crowd. And I don't know, I don't care for it. And maybe that's why I'm never going to get to that level. I'm just working towards monetization myself. As of this recording, I haven't gotten to it yet, but I'm getting there. I'm clawing my way up there. If I can get monetized, I think I'll sit comfortably at a certain level of ad revenue. I don't think I'm going to push for 5 million subscribers and things like that. I don't know. It's a bit much, honestly. I know there's probably people out in the audience being like, well, you're never going to get there because your stuff isn't that good. And that's fine. You're perfectly allowed to have that opinion. And maybe it isn't that good, and I'll find out. Maybe I'll F around and find out. I'm pragmatic about the whole thing. Another thing is that people still haven't caught on to the fact that 90% of YouTube titles for independent videos are clickbait. Even if the content is good, the titles are clickbait. And maybe that's another requirement too. If you watch my gaming videos, I mean, you could theoretically accuse me of using clickbait, but my titles are all made up, depending on how I feel at any given time. When I was playing Callisto Protocol, I had 2 videos that were Callisto fried rice. It wasn't a deep comment on anything. It was just because I was eating fried rice when I played the game, so I put that up as the title. I'll take jabs at people sometimes with my titles. I'll, put up quotes, movie quotes and things. When I was doing Indiana Jones, I put up quotes from the movies as the titles. If that's clickbait, I mean, I guess. You could call it that, I guess, but I'm not intending it to do that. I just figure it's a weird title, and if people are like, well, that's weird, and then they click on and see it and like, oh, well, this is garbage, I don't want to watch that. Or they'll click and be like, oh, well, it kind of relates to what he's doing. This is interesting stuff. But there's people who do severe weather on YouTube, which on the one hand is great. While they're doing the severe weather, like if there's an outbreak of tornadoes or something like that, they're pretty good. They're pretty factual. I find them to be pretty interesting. I follow along. But what irritates me is that every one of their videos that isn't like a breaking news right now, this is live on the ground, anything where they're just talking about the weather or whatnot, it's, the storm system will change everything. The winter storm was so destructive, find out where. And I'm kind of like, now you're ambulance chasing, basically. And I hate to see it. It drives me nuts. Like, because several of them, I like the actual content that they put out, but their titles are so clickbaity that there's been multiple times where they've shown this big graphic, and the graphics are part of it. They'll show a thumbnail graphic. This massive storm is threatening to upend the entire United States, and it'll show this big colored graphic, and it'll have Ohio, where I'm located in a danger zone. And I'll be like, okay, well, I'll check it out. And it ends up that the entire state of Ohio is going to be perfectly fine. The surrounding states around Ohio will be perfectly fine. Oh, there's severe weather coming in Texas? Oh, okay. Why didn't you show the graphic showing Texas? Why show this big swath of everything? Because it's ambulance chasing, and it's trying to get people alarmed and get people drawn in. And at that point, it doesn't matter how helpful you're being. It doesn't matter how factual and how, on the ball you are with the actual content. It's you're drawing people in under false pretenses. And it's annoying, and there's so much of that on YouTube. That's just one example. And I'm not going to name any channels for that, because the people who are doing that aren't just reporting on news and things. They're, like I said, they're sitting down live during bad weather outbreaks, having storm chasers going out and pinpointing where tornadoes are striking down or things like that. And that's really helpful, life-saving information. So I'm not going to say anything good or bad about them for that. I appreciate what they're doing, and I don't want to put anybody on blast again for that. But stop using the clickbait titles. I understand you're trying to get people to watch, and it is important information, but stop with the clickbait titles. Come on. Come on. Speaking of severe weather, let's pivot. Let's pivot to the next big thing that's happening. Which I say that in a way that's kind of off the cuff, but I don't mean to say that. Because this is a tough situation. The LA wildfires in California. It's bad. It's pretty bad out there right now. If I could type correctly for stats, not stata. Statistics. The fires in the Los Angeles area have killed at least 27 people. Destroyed more than 12,000 structures and charred more than 60 square miles. And the Palisades and Eaton wildfires continue to burn today. Now, where did this come from? Here's one from MSN, from Microsoft Network. The area that's been burned is larger than the city of Boston. That's a big area. I mean, it's not huge, but it's a big area. Business Insider, let's see, they've got some statistics. At least 5 separate wildfires. The Palisades fire alone has burned through over 17,000 acres of land in 2 days. The entire island of Manhattan is 14,600 acres, so it's bigger than the entirety of Manhattan. Dang, and there's no real pinpointed single cause for it either. There's been people arrested for starting fires. Did that set off the chain reaction that started the whole thing? Don't know yet. Did it contribute? Possibly. There's been a water shortage in California for quite a while. There's droughts, and I just don't get it. And maybe I'm being an idiot. Maybe I just can't grasp it. But they're right next to the Pacific Ocean. And I know I on the other show, on This Uncanny Earth, we talked about this a bit. And one of our listeners pointed out, when I said that you're right next to the ocean, you can do desalinization, which is taking the salt out. One of our listeners said that he's an engineer. He's going through engineering school. And I don't know if he's specifically an engineer for this kind of thing, but he did point out that he's heard, and he did say he's heard, so it's not a hard and fast thing. Don't want to take any 100% yes or no on the issue, but he's read that desalinization is a difficult process, and I believe that. I do believe it, but I think resources could have been devoted over several decades before now to make it an easier process, right? Because it's right next to them. And I understand it's a big state, and I understand the logistics of transporting water across such a big area. I get that. But could we not have done something? Could we not have done something with all of that water sitting right offshore? And I don't want to be tone deaf about it. I don't want to be one of those people who's like, hey, just pick up the water straight from the ocean and pour it on, because salt water is not what you want to use for a fire necessarily. You want to use fresh water. And there's a lot of different good reasons for that. I'm not an environmental person, so I can't list all those reasons. And that's why I'm not saying we definitely should have done this. I just think, why couldn't we have looked more deeply into it? Just bringing up the topic for discussion. But it's a bad situation out there, and there's a lot of facets to it, and there's a lot of people pointing fingers at both the local governments and at the state governments, and they're pointing fingers at other people, and it's going to take time and effort to sift through the origins of all that, I think, to try and prevent it from happening again. And that's what's unfortunate. Conversely, on my end of the country, we're under our fourth winter advisory, serious winter advisory, not just like, oh, hey, it's going to snow a little bit, but heavy snowfall, blistering cold, ice on the road, stay inside your house. Our fourth in that vein within the last 2 weeks. We've had snow, we've had ice. We have a 5-day advisory starting today for the next 5 days as of this recording of extreme wind chill, where due to the wind chill it's going to feel, it's not actually going to be that low, but it will feel, and your body will react to it as if it's negative 25 degrees. That's Fahrenheit for people who are from outside the country, because that's what we use here as heathens in the United States more than anything else. But negative 25 here in Ohio for 5 days. Wow, that hasn't happened for a long time. We've had some rough winters the last few years, but it hasn't been like, as I mentioned this on the other show as well. I keep saying every year in a grumpy old man fashion, well, this year is going to be the year we're going to get a bad winter, and it doesn't exactly turn out that way. It ends up being kind of like, there's a few weeks of really brutal cold weather, and then that's it. But this one is really starting out to be, we've got a lot more snow than we usually get around this time. I know it's January, but we started in December with the snow, and it's been steady. It hasn't been like snow, melt, snow, melt, snow, melt, because that's been the last few years. But it's been just straight snow daily for the last couple weeks now. And it's cold. It's very cold. Super cold outside. So we're getting hit with it, and it's not just us. It's Pennsylvania, up towards New York. It's a rough one so far. So you've got fire and ice, as the title of this episode is. You've got fire on the West Coast and ice on the East Coast. I don't know what they're doing in the middle. Having snow cones? I don't know. I don't want to make light of anything, honestly, but I'm just... It's a crazy situation. It really is a crazy situation. So anyway, hopefully, I know there's a lot of people displaced on the West Coast. Hopefully they can find lodging and help these people get back on their feet when everything starts to get better. 130,000 people at least have been displaced from their homes, if not their homes having been outright destroyed, according to Business Insider. So I definitely hope that situation gets under control in the near future and people's lives improve. I'm not going to say I'm sending prayers or anything like that, because I don't do that. I don't do prayers. I don't do anything like that. That's not particularly helpful, in my opinion. If you're a person out there who prays and you disagree with me, by all means, pray all you like. I'm not going to tell you not to. I mean, it's not like it's going to hurt anything, right? I don't think it's going to help anything, but it's certainly not going to hurt anything, so go ahead. And so let's move on to something else. Probably one of the last things I'm going to talk about for the evening. And you folks know that I've gotten back into watching the WWE stuff over the last couple of years. I've been watching on Netflix now that they've got episodes of Raw on Netflix, so I've been watching that. That's been good. I'm not going to get into any specifics of the shows because it's after the debut last week, and then the second episode this week. It's just going to follow a regular pattern of a weekly show, and that's fine. You don't got to talk about every single episode. But I am going to say that one of the announcements they made is that one of their there's like 4 big premium events that they have every year, and several smaller ones. They've got SummerSlam, they've got Survivor Series, they've got Royal Rumble, and they've got WrestleMania. Okay, those are the 4 big ones, and they've got little ones scattered in between. Like they've got Elimination Chamber, they've got Backlash. Sometimes they had Bad Blood this past year. But for 2026, the Royal Rumble, which takes place generally in January, but this year it's going to be in February for 25, which is interesting. It's been kind of late. But the one for 2026 is going to be in Saudi Arabia. Now, they already have a yearly show, one of those smaller shows. It's called Crown Jewel, that Saudi Arabia does every year. Because Saudi Arabia pays a bunch of money for that. Last I had heard is they spent $50 million to bring Crown Jewel to Saudi Arabia for their personal thing. $50 million. And that's a yearly thing. So I can understand why the business people in the WWE leadership would say, yes, of course, we'll take your money. I can understand. I don't have to like it, but I can understand. But this is kind of on a different level. This is one of the pillars of their yearly shows. And it really illustrates that the pro wrestling world, as far as the WWE is concerned, is no longer strictly an American, United States kind of thing. I mean, they've done things overseas before, like they have Clash at the Castle in Scotland, and did something in France. But this is a whole other level. This is one of the cornerstones of the market every year. Like I said, it's one of the big four. And it's going to be hosted by Saudi Arabia, which means very few people from the United States would be in the crowd for that compared to the local people there, because who's going to spend that kind of money? And I know Saudi Arabia is pushing hard for tourism, and yet they still operate under some pretty archaic laws involving women and people who are non-Muslim. And I'm not trying to start a debate on religious stuff. I'm not trying to say Islam is bad, because I don't think at the core of it that it is bad. I don't think that. Just like I don't think at the core of it Christianity is necessarily bad, or any of the other things. They've all had their opportunities in history to be bad. Most religions have all gone through, if not going through right now, periods where parts of them have been really bad. The Taliban in Afghanistan is a pretty good example of bad Islam. Is that all Islam? No, it's not. But it definitely is a bad example of the religion. And Saudi Arabia still has issues with human rights stuff. And it's one of those things where they're just pumping out so much money because they've got the oil fields, and now they've got Dubai as a worldwide tourist destination, party central, that they've got all this money and they're throwing it around and they're just buying people, is what it is. They're buying people, paying people to overlook abuses and overlook problematic things. And I mean, Saudi Arabia was caught. They were caught having assassinated a journalist. They were busted. And everybody basically moved on and forgot about it. You know, there's a lot of talk about we should do something about it. But we're getting a ton of money from Saudi Arabia. And if you do something about it, maybe they won't spend that money here anymore. And then that's a problem, because everything's money. Everything revolves around the dollars. So the Royal Rumble for World Wrestling Entertainment will be in Saudi Arabia in 2026. And I find that to be problematic for the reasons that I mentioned. I don't like it. The last Crown Jewel showed how they view people, because all the dudes were still able to have their trunks and their shorts and not having their shirts on and showing all their physicality. And every single female wrestler and female announcer and female referee had every inch of skin covered from the neck down except for their fingers. So, you know, and I'm not saying that I have to be able to see skin on people. I just have to wonder, you've got all these dudes, bare-chested, bare-legged, and you can't allow the women to do the same thing? That's an equality problem. That's a human rights issue. It's a problem with equality of sexes and genders and whatnot, you know? And I do not care for that at all. But that's what happens. Like I said, it's money. Everything's money. What do we have upcoming? It's the year 2025. It's a new year. We're getting towards the end of January. We're about the middle of January, and I will probably review this year's Royal Rumble, which is February 1st, I believe. So I'll probably review that on an upcoming show, an upcoming episode of the show. The inauguration of Mr. Trump is coming up again, second time, in a few days. And I don't know if I'm going to pay much attention to that. I don't watch inaugurations. I don't watch State of the Union addresses. I don't want to necessarily hear most politicians speak. I don't mind reading what they said if there's a quote in a news article. But I don't want to actually listen to them say it. I didn't like to listen to Obama talk. I didn't listen much to Trump talking the first time. I didn't want to listen to anything that Biden had to say. And I think that trend will continue. I don't want to, and I didn't want to listen to anything about from Kamala either, or Tim Walz, or any of those people. I just don't. I don't want to listen to them talk. I want to know what they said, depending, in bits and pieces. Like if they go off on a rant, like some people do, I don't care about that. But if they're talking about policies and they're talking about this and making major statements, I don't mind reading it. But I don't want to. I don't want to watch it. I don't want to listen to it. I'm not interested. I don't want to care about your tone of voice. I don't, So I'll probably follow what happens with that. I probably won't watch it. But I will probably follow what goes on and if there was anything momentous to say and that sort of thing. Depending, I might talk about the political situation here in Ohio because the people running for our state governments right now, well, they're basically being appointed or they're running for seats that were emptied out because people were, like J.D. Vance, who's the vice president, going to be the vice president. He was from Ohio. He was either a representative or a senator, I think. So he had a seat here. I think a senator. And our governor is a turd. Governor DeWine. He's a slime ball. I wish he'd gotten busted in the First Energy scandal. If you don't know what that is, look up First Energy HB6 Ohio scandal. It's the biggest financial bribery scandal involving government officials in the state's history. So look that up. But the governor is appointing his lieutenant governor, or nominating him at the very least, to fill Vance's Senate seat. And his lieutenant governor is about as slimy. He said a lot of things during the virus years that were unhelpful, that crossed some lines, as far as those of us who have particular opinions about that time period. And I don't think he's, I don't think he's worth putting into office a second time. But, whatever. I'm going to follow that situation. I don't want to get too deep into it right now. I'm wrapping up here. But depending on what happens in the next several weeks with that, I'll probably talk about it and give some further thoughts, especially about HB6, because that was a thing. That was certainly a thing. But anyway, as of this recording, I'm a little behind getting episodes 5 and 6 onto YouTube, so I'm probably going to put them up back to back, and then this episode I'll wait like a week or so that I can get people to listen on Spotify and everywhere else first. So watch for those episodes to get to YouTube. If you're looking up stuff from me on YouTube, you can either look for Spider Does Things directly, or you can use the LTATM hashtag, because most of the videos that come up on YouTube under that hashtag are mine. And it'll continue to be that way, because that's kind of the hashtag that I've sort of carved out for myself. Carved it right out of the claws of a greedy little goblin, so to speak. And, so that's what's coming up. I might have some games to talk about in the near future. I'm still plowing through Final Fantasy franchise. So if you're watching me on Twitch, or if you're still watching my game streams after the fact on YouTube, thank you very much. If you have not done so, as I always say on those videos, please go to my YouTube channel, Spider Does Things. If you're not listening to this here already, Subscribe to the channel, watch the videos, drop some likes. It would really help me out in getting that monetization going. A little bit of ad revenue would help me kind of do some fun things, do some contests, some giveaways, some fun stuff. I'm probably not going to have an animated avatar gimmick. No hate, Hypnotic. I just don't like it. But no hate, brother. No hate. You do you. You're obviously successful at what you're doing, so. And I'm sitting on the couch. So there's that. So, yeah, please do that. It'll help me out. And if you could rate the show on Spotify. Right now I have a 5-star rating from one person. And I suspect I know who that is. Thank you, one person. But if you could go there and give me a good score for this podcast, I would really appreciate it. It would show people that, hey, yeah, this guy has some stuff to talk about, and it's not complete, total, utter garbage. Or maybe you just like garbage and you want to show it off. Like, hey, listen to this garbage that I listen to. Whatever, don't matter. Anyway, that's it. I'm going to take off. And I will see you folks next time.